What did you learn embarrassingly late? Submitted by LightningCole. Didn't learn until I was 20. White meat and dark meat come from the same chicken. Vagina and pee hole are separated. That you can actually perform maintenance on a lawnmower, i.e. oil changes, and not just but a new one every few years. I moved a lot growing up, and as a result we didn't always hang on to larger appliances, so I was like 21 before I learned lawnmowers aren't basically disposable. Glass objects should not be put on the stove. Guess how I learned that? I thought buffaloes were birds, and buffalo wings were from said birds. That guys didn't have to squeeze their dicks to get their pee out. That my mom pronounces bagels as beagles on purpose to mess with me. English is her second language, so I just always assumed that she didn't know the right pronunciation. I was in my late 20s before I realized it. I should have known. It's definitely something she would do. I was convinced cheese grew on bushes till 12 to 13 years old. My brother is really proud of this. Martha's Vineyard isn't just some land that rich people went to that was owned by Martha Stewart. The proper way to say mythology. It was my favorite subject and I talked about it all the time, and not one person told me it wasn't mythology. Found out when my teacher corrected something I read out loud in English class as a senior in HS. I still cringe. Ambulances don't patrol around like police cars. I learned how to swallow pills at 26. Always had a problem trying to gulp them down and they just kept swimming around in my mouth. Up until then I always had to mush them up and just bear with the bitterness whenever I was sick. What it meant to have your car tires rotated. That my cat didn't go back to the pet store when it was sick. I had even heard all the jokes about pets going to the pharmacy. Still didn't strike me till WAAAY too late. That IHOP is the International House of Pancakes. I never made the connection that they were the same thing. So until recently I thought the International House of Pancakes was like a Hall of Fame type museum. Restaurant. For pancakes. I was circumcised. I never knew I was circumcised until I went to the pediatrician and my mom told the pediatrician that I was circumcised. Ellen DeGeneres. Pickles or pickled cucumbers. Look me over 30 years to figure that one out. That several does not in fact mean 7. That I was in fact not missing a testicle. Thought there was supposed to be 3 until I was like 14 years old. Thought an orgasm and an organism were the same thing. Gave an entire speech to my class at 13 years old. First month at a new school. About how I wanted to be a marine biologist and work with marine orgasms. Everyone was laughing and I didn't know why. The teacher didn't say anything, just laughed along as well. A girl I'd just made friends with had to fill me in after class. Turns out, they are definitely not the same thing. When I was 20, I was presented with a really wonderful promotion. It required me to fly to a nearby state for a week of training. I was super ecstatic about the whole thing. Until I remembered a friend of mine complaining about her struggles with getting a passport. So, I promptly declined the promotion. My superiors were really stumped as to why I turned down the promotion. Me. Unfortunately, I don't have a passport. Manager. Boringberry. You've never flown before, have you? Me. No, I have not. Manager. You don't need a passport to fly within the country. And then it hit me, my friend was going to Mexico. I was just going to a neighboring state. Once the realization hit, my superiors all erupted in laughter. The story itself followed me when I went to training. My trainer personally greeted me and asked me if I had any difficulties getting a passport before. Laughing. That limes weren't unripe lemons. I thought Gwen Stefani's name was Gwen Stefani until I was like 20 lol. that Washington, D.C. wasn't in the state of Washington. Brown-nosers' noses are brown from kissing people's butts. Yeah, no. Like they're covered in shit. I was in my late 20s when I out that one together. That the ribs my siblings and I ate as kids were not from velociraptors. My dad and mom had always called them velociraptor ribs for some reason, and I guess we just figured. Our dad was so big and awesome that it made sense that he would often go out and kill dinosaurs for us to eat. I don't think I found out until I was in junior high that they were just regular ribs. I didn't know that women could get pregnant without experiencing an orgasm this year. I learned that this year. At age 26. I'm gay and never really considered it. So dumb. Now I'm someone who's very uptight about sex, nudity around my parents. Imagine Hank Hill hearing his mom talk about sex. He'd say, BWAAAAHHHH. Quote, "It was the late 90s. I was 15. Limp Bizkit was all the rage. To my knowledge, my mom had never heard Limp Bizkit. I didn't understand what the song was about. I wasn't prepared for what followed. I asked, 'Hey mom?' Quote, 'Yes.' Quote, 'What does the word nookie mean?' Quote, 'It means an abundance of mindless repetitive sex.' Oh, and I've never felt more cringe than in that moment. That was the day I learned to always use a dictionary first. Orgasms exist. How to figure out my age. Before I was trying to remember all my birthdays until I was told I could just do the math. When Tails was introduced in Sonic 2, I thought it was cute that his real name was Miles Prower and his nickname was Tails. 25 years later, I was thinking about it and said to myself, Miles Prower, miles per hour. Oh my god, I just never connected the dots before. I didn't know narwhals were actually real until almost 30. Edit. There are dozens of you. Dozens. But I don't know what TF and narwhal baconing at midnight means. It's hard to explain this one and I can't Google it to find pictures. Everyone has bought a tube of cream at some point. Antiseptic, steroid, eczema. For example, on some of these creams. Have you noticed that the lid is circular but in the center of the lid it has a sharp pointy end? Typically, these tubes of cream have a seal and I used to remove the lid and break the seal by finding anything sharp and pointy nearby. Pen maybe. It took my 23 years to realize that the pointy end in the center of the lid has a purpose. There are races of Mennonites and Amish people other than white. I grew up in a small city and was pretty sheltered. That Martin Luther King Jr. was never president. I found out I was wrong when Obama became president. That you don't pronounce the in Coco. Riding a bicycle. I learned it at 18. My parents believed in an astrologer who told them that I would have a terrible accident when I drive or ride. So I had to learn bicycle secretly from a friend. Edit. I did get into an accident, but who doesn't? I loved my parents and am super happy with my childhood. This is the only thing I had to keep up with. Now they see the logic and risk associated with the things I do and always support me. Am Indian. That Bill Nye and Bill Nye are separate people. Junior year of college. That it's pay-per-view, not pay-per-view. What Genuine's Pony is actually about. Kinga and Roo from Winnie the Pooh put together makes kangaroo. Deja vu phenomenon is common for all people. Until 19 years old I believed that I am the only one who experiences glimpses of events I have already lived. I realized my mistake when I shared this with my girlfriend and she stared at me. Cringy expression on her face. Didn't say a word. I was confused so I looked it up the day after and was shocked to see deja vu is fairly common. I felt embarrassed. At 18. While at uni. After studying human biology at a level *** that there isn't just free blood in our bodies. You know, like internal bleeding ***. I dislocated my shoulder. https u2.be//oi house 7 agic. And cartilage got messed up so it kept falling out. I had some keyhole pics taken to investigate, and when looking at them with the doc, oh weird, it looks so dry. Where is all the blood? The doctor just looked at me like I asked why fire hurt when try hold. Quote, in your veins, polite doctor chuckle. I mean, I knew what veins and arteries and yada yada. But for some reason the child thought I cut my skin. And now some blood is leaking out of my skin sac. Never got the update as I grew up. I for some reason assumed there was just free blood everywhere under the skin. Rottweilers are not just fat Dobermans. That you're supposed to get anesthesia when you get your split chin stitched. When I was in grade school, 4th grade, 8 years old, I propped myself up between 2 tables and swung my legs back and forth. No idea it happened, but I ended up falling and splitting my chin open. Apparently school couldn't reach my mom and called my dad. Parents were divorced. Dad was an OB/GYN. He took me to the hospital and put stitches in my chin without giving me anything for the pain. I remember crying and screaming the whole time. He said shit like, "Should I put another stitch here?" Quote. And needless to say, I sobbed. No. Quote. He put it. Of course. Afterwards, the nurse gave me 3 lollipops because I was a good girl. I knew I wasn't a good girl because I bawled so much. Somehow I rationalized that dear old dad didn't give me anesthesia because you're not supposed to when it's an injury on the chin. It wasn't until college, when someone talked about his experience with getting his chin stitched, that I realized that my dad was a fucking asshole. Pilot and co-pilot actually has the same hierarchy. I thought that co-pilot is some kind of assistant to the pilot. Edit. I didn't expect this to blow up, but thanks for the insight. I guess to clarify my first statement, I thought that co-pilot will be promoted to be the pilot. The revelation that I experienced was when both of the pilot and co-pilot of my flight address themselves as captain. They both can have the same rank. I didn't realize sunflower seeds came from the actual sunflower until I was in my late 20s. I'm relatively smart otherwise. I don't know what happened there. The pronunciation of pronunciation. Always used to say pronunciation until someone called me out on it. That West Virginia was a state. I always assumed it worked like Southern California, Northern California, and Texas, West Texas. I was a sophomore in high school. Upside down means the upside is down.